Today, I'm going to teach you how to shade because it's the number one thing that I see 90% of beginners getting wrong every single day. So I've broken every single step down into simple methods that I'm going to be showing you over the next few videos. And once you're finished with this series, your realism will come to life. In this video, I'm going to go over the 3 core principles that you must understand before you even attempt realistic shading. Miss one of these 3 steps and something will always feel off, no matter how much you practice. As always, the needles that I'll be using in this video will be from the Mast Pro range. Now, if you've watched any of my recent videos on YouTube or TikTok, you'll know that these are my go-to. So if you want to use the same equipment that I'm using in this video, then use the link in the description, get yourself over to Dragonhawk's website, and if you use the code JACK10 and buy from their website rather than Amazon, you can literally get packets of needles for half the price than you would do on Amazon. The first core principle to understand is contour lines. Contour lines are usually used in almost every single piece of art, and it's usually the first thing that beginners rely on when starting to create a design. Now, if we're drawing cartoons or learning animation, then contour lines would be the thick black outlines that surround the subject's body or facial features. These outlines are there to really separate the subject from the background, and this is because a lot of cartoons and animation are working with flat two-dimensional colours. So if you took away all of these contour lines, you really wouldn't be able to make out what is going on. However, this kind of technique is something you have to avoid when doing realism. It might seem obvious to some, but when you look at my face compared to the image of a cartoon, you don't see black outlines around my eyes, face, mouth and nose. What you see is light and shadow creating contrast, and your mind is making an image based off of the information that you are getting. And that's exactly how you should think about realism art. Because we're not working with flat two-dimensional colours here. We're working with an entire ocean of values, different tones constantly shifting to create the world that you see around you every single day. What you're actually seeing is light reflecting off every surface around you, bouncing around the environment like a ricocheting bullet until it finally hits your eyes. This is why glass is see-through but not invisible. Let me explain. Glass doesn't have its own colour. It's almost like a chameleon, adapting to whatever is behind it, because the light is being warped around the surface of the glass, which in turn is bending and distorting the values of the colours, which creates contrast between the object and its background. The second core principle to understand is contrast. Now look at these 2 images because they are the exact same subject, but one is clearly easier to read than the other. That comes down to contrast on its most basic level. Contrast is something that either allows an object to blend into its background or stand out from the rest as a point of focus. Today we're only focusing on black and grey realism, so the only thing that you will need to rely on really is getting those different values in your grey wash and making sure that your layering techniques are spot on for you to be able to achieve the different tones that you need to get. Again, let's have a look at my face, but this time let's put it in grayscale. Now try to identify the darkest areas that you can see in less than 5 seconds. As you can see, these areas are my nostrils, inside my mouth, the pupil of my eyes, and the area underneath my beanie where it starts to block the light. Every other value in this image falls in between the mid-tone to highlight area. The darkest parts of realism when doing a portrait should always be the areas where there is depth, and areas where there's a hole or an abyss. And the highlights should be what bring things forward, like the tip of my nose or my chin. And this combination between the darkest points and the lightest points is what creates depth. And the more values that you can add in between the darkest value to the lightest value when designing realism, the more realistic your art will look. Most beginners will just rush realism because they don't quite understand what they're doing, and they'll just literally see a shadow, dip it in black ink, and think, let's go for it. And if you're doing this, you need to stop and start studying your references a bit more and understanding where that shadow falls in between your lightest value and your darkest value. And that takes us on to the next step, which is values and how you use them to create contrast. Values are simply just how light or dark something is. It's not colour, it's literally just brightness. If your values are correct, it doesn't matter if you take away every single piece of colour from your artwork, it will still make sense. But the main thing that beginners get wrong is, like I said earlier, they see a shadow and just go straight for the black ink and think shadow means black. And when you look at your reference, this isn't the case at all. If you look at the shadow that's underneath my beanie, and then the shadow that is underneath my nose, they are two completely different values. One is nearly pitch black, the other is only, it's not black at all. They are completely different colours. Now, there are art styles out there that literally just use black and white tones when doing portraits. However, this is not realism, and if you want consistent smooth shading like a professional tattoo artist, you need to fully understand all of these 3 rules when it comes to attempting realism. Otherwise, you're just wasting your time. So the question you should be asking isn't where are the shadows? It should be how dark are these shadows compared to my darkest and lightest values. So this is the start of my mini shading series where I'm going to go through every single needle that you can use in order to get a consistent gradient when shading realism. So if you enjoyed this video, keep an eye out because I'm literally going to be teaching you everything you need to know about shading within the next few videos. That's it for me today. I'll catch you on the flip side.